Hey, welcome to our show here tonight. Welcome to We'll Sing and We'll Shout with your host, Steve Hansen. We've got a couple regular guests here. We've got Cheryl Showalter and Aaron Hansen here with us. We're going to do segment 3 of Uncle Jimmy, and we'll be talking about Uncle Jim stories and wrap up the rest of his life here in pictures and stories. So before we do that, I feel I kind of said this last night, but I'm going to say it again. The programming lately has been a little weak, and it's just been I don't know if that's your perspective, Cheryl and or Aaron, but
watching you on the roof was kind of fun.
But the programming seemed a little weak from my perspective, so we're going to try and improve that. And of course, tomorrow night we'll have Cheryl's segment 11 of
Segment
Cheryl's
11.
boyfriend countdown calendar, so that'll be exciting.
And this one is exciting because this
that's
young
gonna be
man's name is Martin Showalter that I'm going to be talking about tomorrow night.
Right. That'll be pretty good stuff. So,
Yep.
So without further ado, Cheryl, let's let you take it again, and I'll put some pictures up as you're talking, and we'll let you lead the way here. And
All
Aaron can chime in anytime he feels inspired to.
All right. First, I have a funny story about Dad, my dad.
Okay.
I took him to a play today at Bellevue Society for the Arts, which he's got Alzheimer's and a pretty short memory, and it was the play The Fiddler on the Roof. About the first hour, he was just enthralled with the whole thing. And then about the next half hour, he was okay. But then the next after an hour and a half, he started to get real antsy. And I could tell he wanted to get up and leave. But we're like smack in the middle of the audience. And Sherry's on my right. So I just didn't know, we couldn't get out. So I'm trying to get him to quiet down because he's saying stuff like, those people are crazy up there. I mean, he's like saying it right out loud during the show. And he's like, what are they doing? And I said, they're getting married, Dad. And finally, I leaned over and I said, Dad, if you don't quiet down, I'm going to have to spank you. And boy, he just got the giggles about that. And he did quiet down. So that was pretty funny. But
the threat worked.
Yeah. So then me and Dad go out to the car because at intermission, I just took the chance to get out of there. I wasn't going to try to make him sit through the next hour. Right. I took Dad out and Sherry went to the restroom and she didn't even know we had left. So she was looking all over the theater for us, even though I told one of my friends to tell Sherry we had left. So we get out to the car and I put Dad in the front seat and he had been riding in the back seat because me and Martin were in the front. So I put him in the front seat. We're going over to Sherry's so he can pee because the theater was completely full. Sherry said we were almost sold out. We only had 4 seats left. So that's amazing. BSA is a pretty big theater. And so Dad needed to use the restroom. Well, the line for the restroom was a mile long. So I said, Dad, let's just go over to Sherry's house. She lives, 5 minutes from not even that, from BSA, because she lives right by the high school. So I took him over there and let him use her potty. But as he gets in the car, he leans down and he's looking at my floor mats. And we have those real tough, durable, like rubber floor mats. I can't remember the name of them. There's a special name. But they're kind of full of dirt from the winter. And when Martin was doing his strike, he was always in a dirty parking lot. So he'd get in with dirt on his shoes, and I haven't cleaned them. And so Dad gets in and he looks down at the at the dirty floor mats. The man can't remember me, can't remember his own name, but the floor mats really bothered him. And he said, Cheryl, he did tell me, Cheryl, I'd really like to buy you a new set of these floor mats. Because you know how he's always such a neat freak. And so when we were driving to Bellevue, he thought I was some Uber driver, I guess, because he kept asking when we were going to get to Cheryl. When are we going to meet Cheryl? And I'm the one driving, right? And he's just looking at the back of my head. And so we get to the BSA and he's like, is Cheryl going to be in here? And I said, yep, she's going to be in there. So he couldn't remember me, but he could remember that he hated dirty floor mats.
Right.
So he told me he was going to buy me a new set of floor mats. And I was like, well, thanks, Dad. That's real nice of you. And then he noticed that my dashboard was kind of dusty. And he goes, and I'll pay someone to come in and clean this dashboard for you. Oh, my gosh. The man never changes. He just can't help himself. He's such a neat freak. So that was my funny dad story for today.
Very good. What was the play again? Did you say Fiddler?
The Fiddler on the Roof.
Right. Okay.
And my friend Jimmy Foreman directed it, and my friend David Ailing played Tevya, the father. Tradition. That's the very first song. And he had 70 people in this cast. I mean, it was amazingly big cast, and it was just beautiful. So well done. So, I only saw the first half, but it was really good.
Right.
And
Awesome.
so anyway, so on to Uncle Jim. This is our third installment about Uncle Jim's life. And I took Dad out to the farm today, and Steve
Yeah.
Swartz happened to be on his tractor across the street, and I waved at him, and so he pulled over on his little tractor, and him and Dad had a conversation about the crops, and it was really cute. So anyway, Susan
Right.
told me to take Dad to the farm because he's been driving her crazy about going to the farm. So we got a picture with the address thing right there, so that if he
Yeah.
starts to drive her crazy this week, she can say, "Look, Cheryl took you to the farm just a couple days ago. Here's a picture of you two standing by the end of the lane." So,
Yeah, that's the problem. By tomorrow, he's already forgotten that he's gone there, and
right.
so
Yep. That's
last
why
time,
when I was watching Dad and Dad, I was watching Dad for a day, and I had just fed him, and he went in the bathroom and called Susan and told Susan that I hadn't fed him anything, and we had just been to Panera.
right?
So in a few hours, I fed him another meal, and I sat him at the table, and I took a picture of him eating, and I sent it to Susan. So I'm like, I am not starving this man. He is eating.
Right.
Oh golly, what a goofball. All right. So back to Uncle Jim. So this is the third installment. So this is after he's moved home. He was a ward of the state, and somehow they got him warded back to him. So that's good. And we were talking about the little dog Skippy. He would jump on
Right.
Jim's lap, and then he got hit by a car in the yard. So that's sad days. But okay, so then there was a kind of a break in the story. So that was a good place to stop last week. So the next paragraph says during the next 23 years, until 1975, Mom and Dad cared for Jimmy in their home. This meant that a typical day required that his wet clothes, sheets, and blankets be changed to dry ones. Mom usually did this in the latter part of the morning since Jim would sleep 12 hours or more because of the high doses of sedatives he was taking. He was then lifted out of his bed by Dad and carried into a chair in the living room. Do you remember seeing that, guys?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember
Yeah.
the chair.
Yep, I remember Grandpa carrying him out there. I thought Grandpa was Superman, that he could lift this grown man. Mom fed him one spoonful at a time rather than letting him feed himself because she was afraid of the seizures, would send his dishes and food flying across the room, resulting in embarrassment for him along with another mess to clean up. His meals always included a number of rather powerful medications, usually in the form of capsules. I wonder if Grandma tried to hide them in like peanut butter like they do for dogs.
I think she did. I think she did incorporate them with the food somehow or something.
Right, because they probably didn't taste too good. After eating breakfast, Jim's day consisted of watching TV or being entertained by whomever appeared in the living room. And that was Mr. Rogers. We all watched Mr. Rogers, Captain Kangaroo. Religious. Grandma liked religious stuff, so that was on a lot. But so I do remember watching TV with Uncle Jim. He always seemed excited when any one of us could come to visit. After supper and the usual family activities, Dad would carry him to his clean bed around 10 p.m. for his night's sleep. When Dad was away from home for brief periods of time, Bill or I would carry him to and from his bed. He was then a full grown man and was quite heavy, probably 130 to 150 pounds, so it was difficult to lift him out of his chair or bed. Dad had taught him to grab around our necks with his arms before we began lifting him up. I remember seeing him do that. He would
Yeah.
gradually raise his arms from his bed to our necks like a crane raising its boom. He was really quite strong. That really helped with the lifting. When my sister Jean was home, she would help with feeding and caring for him. When my family and I moved to the farm in June of 1973, Jimmy moved to a house in Bellevue, Ohio on Fairfield Street with Mom and Dad. I actually drove by that today and I showed Dad that house. And I said, the Kennys used to own that house and Grandma and Grandpa lived there for a few years. And I don't know that he really had any dawn of remembrance of that, but I did show it to him.
I didn't realize Jimmy. I mean, that makes sense, but I didn't realize Jimmy had lived there with I didn't remember that he was
Yeah.
there. I don't know what point he went off to Green Springs, but it would
Well,
have
it
been
said
too
here
late.
he lived with them until 1975. So I guess probably when they moved out to that house on 269, that's probably when they moved him to Green Springs, I would guess.
I think they were at the Little Red House more than 2 years, though. But
I don't know. That was such a cute house, and it's still a cute house. But I
Yeah.
remember Jimmy's room was downstairs, Grandma and Grandpa's room was downstairs, and then if we were going to stay the night, we were upstairs with the dormers and stuff. It was a really fun room.
and that's where the tornado blew the top off the water tower and planted it in Grandma's front
Grandma's yard, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and Grandma was on the news. I remember Grandma was on the news because they were asking
Yep.
her about the tornado.
Yep. She made Toledo 11 News that night. So
Yep,
we were all pretty excited that our grandma was on the news. So.
that's right.
I
And that
don't
she was
remember
still, and that she was still alive. All right, so that was the Kinneys did own that house. Roger and Joyce Kinney owned that house.
Right.
Sometime during 1975, Mom and Dad and Jim moved to the house they purchased 1.5 miles south of Bellevue on Route 269. I did point that house out to Dad today too, but he didn't seem to remember it. Sometime thereafter, the decision was made to have Jim cared for at the St. Francis Nursing Home in Green Springs, Ohio. He was 36 years old. While he was there, Mom and Dad seemed to be pleased with the care he was getting. He was often taken from the hospital to Fremont in a big yellow bus to work for the Sandco Industries at the School of Hope. I remember visiting him one time at his place of work. His job was to put a few screws, washers, and bolts in a plastic bag for Whirlpool Corporation. Well, that's pretty cool. The hardware was attached to new washing machines as repair items if needed by eventual customers. It was very hard for Jimmy to put those small items in such a small bag. I recall his dedication to the task. It took him a long time because the powerful medicine he was taking slowed his reflexes so much. He seemed to never lose patience with the process and proceeded to do it at his own pace the best he could. He was actually paid for doing it by the School of Hope. An exciting day for him was the opportunity he was given to go shopping one day and for the first time buy his mom and dad a Christmas present with the money that he had earned himself. Oh, isn't that sweet?
Mhm.
And there is actually, Susan just gave me a whole box of pictures today. And in here, there is a class photo from the School of Hope, Sandco Industries, 1987, 1988. And Uncle Jim's in here. So I'll have to snap a picture of this and get it to you, Steve.
Okay. That's not something I already have.
I don't think so. Here, I'll do it right. Well, I can't do it right now because then I'll get lost and I'll end up going away. So I'll do it after
Yeah.
we're done talking. Okay, so he got to buy a Christmas gift for his mom and dad, which is awesome. On another occasion, Dad and I went to visit Jimmy and watched him participate in a wheelchair race at the Special Olympics that were sponsored by the School of Hope. Jim didn't win the race that day, but he rolled forward the best he could and made it to the finish line. He was always a winner in his own way. Mom and Dad almost always visited him every Sunday and would have lunch there. I remember that. They'd go to church and then they'd go see Jim. Dad and Mom's narrative continues as follows. Okay, so we're back to Grandma and Grandpa. Quote, except for short stays at the local nursing home while we were showing cattle during the summer at county, district, and state fairs, Jim was with us until he was 36 years old. By then, he had become a 24-hour-a-day patient, and it was beyond our physical strength to continue his care. Social workers came and saw the extent of our problem and found a place for him in Green Springs, Ohio. Jim was there until he died at age 53. He made a lot of friends. He worked for a number of years at Sandco Industries. That's where my friend Marty from Bellevue Society for the Arts said she took care of Jim when he was in Green Springs. At his funeral, a van load of his friends came during calling hours, as did nurses from St. Francis. Jim had nothing much to offer but his love for others. This he did up to the last day of his life. As I observed Jim having convulsion-free periods after surgeries, it has often occurred to me that if those pressures could be controlled by electrical devices, similar to heart monitors, maybe brain waves could be intercepted before they got out of control. A few years before Jim died, the doctor of Bellevue Hospital ordered a CAT scan of Jim's head. After reading the results, they told us Jim's problem had resulted from a brain injury when he was very young, repeating to us what we had tried to tell the Cleveland Clinic 45 years before. Wow, that's crazy. That's really crazy. All right, so now we could go back to Dad's narrative. So this is Robert. He lived in Green Springs for nearly 17 years. He lived there until he died, not due to epilepsy, as predicted by the doctor at Gallipolis, but due to complications resulting from pneumonia. He died July 20th, 1992. His funeral service was held on a warm, sunny day at Fireside United Church of Christ. He was buried east of the church in the cemetery there, close to Thompson, where he always wanted to go to school. Some might ask what purpose there was for a life like Jimmy's. My mom and dad took care of him for 53 years. They could never leave him without a babysitter being hired unless one of us was there. Medications and doctor's care resulted in never-ending expenses. His life seemed to be one of continuous misery with little or no opportunity for fulfillment. So, what was the Lord's purpose for a life like Jimmy's? As his brothers and sisters, Bob, Bill, and Jean, learned how blessed we were to have healthy bodies and opportunities for fulfilling lives, we learned the real meaning of service with an understanding of the meaning of sacrifice as exemplified by our loving parents. In spite of the challenges and burdens that Jimmy placed on our whole family, Mom and Dad made sure our lives were provided with every opportunity for normal levels of activities. We were permitted to excel scholastically in sports, music, 4-H, FFA, FHA, and church activities. Our opportunities to enjoy normal lives were not curtailed. I will never forget my visits to Green Springs with Mom and Dad. I would feel guilty about the amount of time that would lapse between the visits. No matter how long it might have been since my last visit, Jimmy would welcome me with his best smile and biggest hug. Jimmy was a supreme example of unconditional love. Another lesson I learned from Jimmy's life was a glimpse of the ultimate sacrifice our Heavenly Father offered us when He sent His only Son to earth to teach each of us what unconditional love is all about. Heavenly Father agonized as His Son died on the cross that in spite of our shortcomings and sinful ways, we might have eternal life. I am thankful for Jimmy's life and the great example of patience and love he was to me. I am grateful for my mom and dad and the sacrifice they made to care for their beloved son. They were there for him from the day he was born until the day he died. Jimmy's place and mom and dad's place in heaven is assured. And that's it. And then there were just those pictures.
You want to talk to these pictures here some?
Oh, sure.
This is kind
I
of
can
neat,
do
Aaron,
that.
to see your mom and Melanie with that 1980s hair thing going on.
Yeah, that is pretty funny. All right, let me take a look here. I'm going to look in the back of my book so I can see them a little better.
And here we've got Grandma with Jimmy on a birthday.
Yeah, there's quite a few of these pictures, isn't there?
And then
Okay, there it is. There it is. Okay. So Aaron's mom, Janine, is in the upper left photo, and his sister, Melanie, who was the cutest baby ever on the planet, I have to say. When Melanie was born, they brought her to a park there across from, it was Greenwood Heights. So Grandma and Grandpa were living in that little red house. And they brought Melanie and set her up on the picnic table in her little chair. And I was just enthralled with her. I just kept staring at her because she was so beautiful. So there's Jimmy eating, and then down at the bottom left, yeah, birthday party. Grandma's brought him some cupcakes. And then over to the right, he's just kind of sitting in a chair looking like Uncle Jim. And the bottom right must be one of those class pictures like I was talking about, because I've seen quite a few of those in the stuff that Susan has sent me. All right, do you want to change to another picture?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, yep, that's the next page. In the upper left corner, there's my little sister Natalie. She's the baby of all 13 of us. I'm the oldest and she's the baby. So she's with Jimmy. And that looks like, let's see, that says 1990. Oh, sometimes they would bring him home for like Christmas or something. They would bring him home. So that's Don't you think that's Grandma and Grandpa's house on 269 there?
Probably because I remember my dad used to go get him from Green Springs to bring him home for special occasions because Grandpa was to the point where he couldn't really
Couldn't
lift him
lift him.
anymore,
Right.
and my dad would go pick him up and bring him home for special occasions and stuff.
Because that looks like the bow window in front of that house that Uncle Jim's sitting beside. And you know what's funny is Grandma would have us, I'd spend the night at Grandma and Grandpa's house occasionally. They're on 269. And that room where they would put Jim, it was covered with a plastic mattress pad.
Right.
So whenever you would turn over in that bed, you'd just get crinkle, 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 crinkle. It was impossible to sleep in that bed.
Yeah, I
Oh,
had to
God.
sleep in that bed a couple times. I remember that.
Yep. And I'm sure it was for Uncle Jim. So that's pretty
Right.
funny.
I think they put it there for you, Cheryl.
What'd you say?
I think they put it there for you.
No, I never wet my bed. All right. Upper right corner is our baby sister Natalie. Looks like probably about a year before the picture on the left because she's just real tiny. Natalie
Yep.
looked like a little Indian baby. She had the funniest look when she was a newborn. There he's snuggling on her, which is cute. And then bottom left, mom with Jimmy and the Clyde at the Hanson family reunion. Okay. There's that park. So that was 1985. I was home that summer from college. I hope I was working at Cedar Point that summer, so I don't know if I made it to the thing or
Yeah,
not.
I would have been out in Idaho that summer, so I wasn't around
Yeah.
for that one.
So on the bottom right is Bob, Natalie, and Natalie on Jimmy's lap. Well, that's really cute. And that was who is that Aunt Jean standing there? Maybe to the left in that left of that picture. You see what I'm talking about? Somebody's holding a camera or something.
Yeah.
Wonder if that's Jean.
Yeah, I think that is Aunt Jean. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it kind of looks like to me. Because Susan's obviously taking the picture, so she would be back further.
Yeah.
All right, you want to go to the next one?
Yep. All right. What do we got here?
All right, so this says Dad and Jimmy. So there's our grandfather in the upper left corner. He was a very tall man, 6'3". At his, I don't know, when you and I were kids, and you too, Aaron, Grandpa was just a big bear of a man. He was enormous to me. I just thought he was so huge. And Bob and Bill just weren't never as reached as tall as Grandpa. They were both like right around 6 foot tall, I think, but Grandpa was 6'3", so he just was bigger. Then this top right picture is the siblings, all four siblings together. Bob, Bill, Jean, and Jimmy. That's a nice picture. I love that one that Grandma always kept on her on the piano. The one of the four of them when they were children. I think it was in black and white. That was always they all had like suits on and stuff. I love that little picture of them. I'm not sure where that's at, but all right. So bottom left is Jimmy at home on 269. So this looks like it's in Grandma's, like right inside the garage door there, because that's the room that had that crazy wallpaper.
Hmm.
You can see Grandma's hutch there. And then Jimmy at Rainbow Springs Campground in Loudonville on the bottom right. And that's where Aaron lives. Well, I don't know if you live
Yeah.
there, but you work there, right?
Oh, I used to live there.
Yeah. Now, what do you guys call it now? Because you don't call it Rainbow Springs anymore, do you?
They changed it to Sunset Springs
Ah,
Family
there we
Camp.
go.
Yep.
Something about the rainbow. They were inviting the wrong crowd.
Yeah.
That's hysterical.
Actually, my mom wanted it to be Sunset Springs originally, and my dad overruled her and made it Rainbow Springs. And so now he's not around to overrule her, so she changed it to Sunset Springs.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's hysterical. So if you ever need a nice campground around Loudonville, go to Sunset Springs.
Yep.
Yep. Do
And then
you have the one with the Special Olympics, Steve?
I think that's coming up here now.
All right,
Yeah.
there it is. All right, so the upper left is the Special Olympics. Jimmy's there in his wheelchair. I think he's the one in the red.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And then the bottom left, you can see him again in all his red gear. I don't know if it's Ohio State gear, but it's red.
It looks like Ohio State gear, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and then upper right and lower right, he's in. Looks like more Ohio State gear. That's hysterical. Our whole family has to be Buckeyes, right?
You betcha.
Yep. Even Uncle Jim. How cute is
And
that?
finally, we've got this last picture here. So who's Doris? Was that a girlfriend?
Oh, let me maybe Jimmy and Doris, upper left picture. She seems to be hanging on his arm. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's cute. Upper right, Jimmy dyes Easter eggs. That's cool. Bottom right, he's getting a ride in his wheelchair. When I was a little girl, I used to just sit on his feet and get pushed around. And then bottom left is Billy Joe. That's our cousin, our Aunt Jean's son is Billy Joe. And it looks like Grandma is there, and
Yeah, who's the gal there? Is that just somebody who works at the
maybe she's really cute.
Well,
Showing him his.
I wasn't gonna say that, but yeah.
I know, right? Showing him his gift or something. I don't know for sure, but it's nice that Billy Joe's there. I like that.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's the whole story about Uncle Jim.
Well, very good. Well, thank
Yep.
you, Cheryl. You did a great job with that.
Thank you.
Aaron, any last comments there?
I don't know that I have any about Jim, but going back to when Cheryl was talking about Grandma, like hiding the medicine in Jim's food and stuff so they eat it. It reminded me that she used to make some unique creations to hide stuff in the food so that the kids would eat it. He came up with like tuna fish pancakes or something, so Billy Joe would eat his tuna fish.
Oh
Or get
my
some fish or
gosh.
something. And
Do you
there
remember
was
Grandma's leftover stew? Like everything from the fridge just got thrown in a pot, basically.
Yeah, I don't know that she ever made this exact same thing twice. Everything, I mean, I'm sure she did, but she had a lot of new creations.
Uh-huh.
I think she hid a lot of stuff in pancakes, because it seems like she might have made some like corn pancakes too, like with kernels of corn in them. I think
Uh-huh.
she did different things to get, because she had Billy Joe and Yvonne there at her house quite a bit, or a lot of the time, and she had to get them to eat all the healthy stuff, and so she had to come up with some unique ways to do it, I guess.
Right. A lot of ladies like are doing butternut squash now and then putting it in the kids' mac and cheese because it's the same color, so they don't know it's in there.
Very cool. Well, hey, tomorrow night will be a good one. Cheryl's boyfriend's countdown calendar, and so we'll be going with that at our regular time. And everybody have a good evening, and we'll catch you tomorrow night.
Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Well, I think I might have clicked the button before we got your goodbyes in.
Oh, that's all right.